Oh my gosh, there was a ton of new information in the most recent Nintendo Switch 2 Direct. I'm going to go over everything so far preliminary that I know that I liked about the show, what I didn't like about the show, and varying levels of in between. So let's go ahead and first start off with the price and the release date. These are things that I was off on just a little bit when it comes to the price. It is a confirmed $449.99, so $450 essentially here in the US. I'll have the other prices for around the world up on screen for you guys, and it's launching officially on June 5th. So I did say that it was going to be an early June launch, almost hit that May prediction that some people had out there with theories, but yes, June 5th launch for the Nintendo Switch 2, so good launch. Price, I was off by $50. I thought it was going to be $399. It is $450. Now, there's a bunch of information just to let you guys know about game key cards or potential regular cards with data on them or not, and there's a lot of information flying around. So once I actually get the full information on that, in addition to the prices overall, which we'll talk about what I don't like with Mario Kart being $80 and some other things that are happening here with some of the prices and whether it's going to be physical and all that, we'll get into some of the stuff that we do know, or at least what I know 100% overall, but there's still information coming out on that, so I will refrain in terms of everything when it comes to physical games and the digital games and all that till we get a confirmation. So expect an update video when it comes to that. But I want to talk about some of the awesome stuff when it comes to Nintendo Switch 2. Let's talk about the launch lineup, because we have a confirmed launch lineup in addition to a number of games that have been confirmed from a third-party standpoint. So that's very exciting to get into that. But the launch lineup definitely beats out the launch lineup of the Nintendo Switch 1. So here are the confirmed Nintendo Switch 2 launch lineup games. Shout out to my man Stealth who rounded up all this. Mario Kart World, Bravely Default Flying Fairy HD Remaster, Street Fighter 6, Split Fiction, which is a great game, Hogwarts Legacy, Hitman World of Assassination, Yakuza 0 Director's Cut, Deltarune Chapters 1 through 4, Civilization 7, Survival Kids, Cyberpunk 2077 Ultimate Edition, Kinitsugami Path of the Goddess, Puyo Puyo Tetris 2S, Rune Factory Guardians of Azuma, Nobunaga's Ambition Awakening Complete Edition, Fast Fusion, which is a sequel to Fast RMX, which was a launch title for the Nintendo Switch 1, Fortnite, Arcade Archives 2, Ridge Racer, and Nintendo Switch 2 Welcome Tour. So out of the launch lineup there, I think that it's pretty good. Mario Kart World, that is an $80 game apparently here. Don't like that overall, but if you buy the bundle with the Nintendo Switch 2, they slash $30 off of that price to kind of get you to buy that bundle, and it comes in at $499.99. So I'm probably going to go with that bundle. But once again, I've got to see how physical games actually work and stuff, because there's been a lot of information. And once again, there's some stuff that's like game key cards that aren't actually physical. Then other people that are saying, wait a minute, there's actually physical ones. So it's going to be like Switch 1 in a sense. So we're just going to have to wait for a bit more information on that. Now I want to briefly touch on the Nintendo Switch new feature when it comes to the chat or the C button. They have essentially built-in Discord chat and also video chat, and it's cross-compatible with various different games where you can invite people in and chat, and it uses a new mic that cancels out echoes and noise and stuff in the background on the Nintendo Switch 2, in addition to a brand new Pro Controller that has a headphone jack built into it, which I'm pretty sure you'll be able to access the chat features right there as well using Bluetooth audio or using headphones as well. So that's actually pretty cool overall. But when it comes to the games here, pretty decent launch lineup overall. Mario Kart World is going to be a banger of a game based off of what they've shown. That it's essentially an open world style of Mario Kart game. You can pretty much roll from one area to the next. It's just kind of like super hype. It's bigger, better, it's more fluid. There's 24 racers. It looks incredible, and it's exclusively coming to the Nintendo Switch 2, whereas some thought that it could come to the Nintendo Switch 1, but that is definitely not the case considering how the game looks and it performs from what we've seen so far. So yeah, I'm very excited about Mario Kart World. I don't like the $80 price tag, but I am going to get the bundle in there with the Nintendo Switch as well, so I get to save a little bit on that. But honestly, it looks like I'm going to spend hundreds upon hundreds of hours in that game, and it just looks like it's going to be a ton of fun. So I'm looking forward to picking it up, but I understand for those when it comes to the price overall. Definitely don't like that about Mario Kart World on the Nintendo Switch 2. Now let's get into the next portion of third-party games that have been confirmed for the Nintendo Switch 2 but aren't launching with the system. So we do have a confirmed Borderlands 4, Daemon X Machina, Titanic Scion, The Dusk Bloods, which is looking absolutely crazy. That's a 2026 game that is From Software making a brand new IP exclusively for the Nintendo Switch 2. That's just nuts right there. I would have never expected that to be a real thing. Nintendo definitely paid a bag for that one. Next up, finally, we got some EA Sports stuff here for those who've been looking forward to it. EA Sports FC, EA Sports Madden NFL, Elden Ring Tarnished Edition, Enter the Gungeon 2, Final Fantasy VII Remake Intergrade, Goodnight Universe, Hades 2, Hollow Knight Silksong Human Fall Flat 2, Marvel Cosmic Invasion, NBA 2K, No Sleep for Kaname Date from Al Summonin Files, Professor Layton and the New World of Steam, Project 007, Ride Owl Remastered, The Mystery of the Soulless Army, Reanimal, Shadow Labyrinth, Star Wars Outlaws, Star Seeker, Astroneer Expeditions, Story of Seasons, Grand Bazaar, Tamagotchi Plaza, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3+4, 2 Point Museum, WWE 2K, Wild Hearts S, and Witchbrook. So those are the games that have all been confirmed, and I'm pretty sure that there's going to be a lot more games coming up, because I think the new Sonic Crossworlds racing game, that was also confirmed separately from this list that VGC also has out. I think all of these come from the Nintendo Switch 2 Direct, and that was announced, I guess, by Sega at some point. So we do have a confirmation of that, and like I said, expect a lot more games to be announced when it comes to the Nintendo Switch 2 in the coming weeks leading up to the June 5th launch. So out of the third-party games here, it's really cool to see stuff like Bravely Default come back in a way. Street Fighter 6 is dope. I like the Dusk Blood stuff that's happening. Final Fantasy VII Remake Intergrade is cool. Cyberpunk is cool as well. So getting these big AAA games that people said can't come to the Nintendo Switch 2 because of whatever reason, or some people who felt that they're going to run like complete trash because of that, it doesn't seem like that's the case, at least based off of what they've shown. Now we have to wait and see if it's actually running on the hardware later once we get some Digital Foundry tests and we get the game in our hands, but so far so good for those games right now. And I do think that Final Fantasy VII Rebirth and other big AAA games are going to be coming over to the system. Nintendo's confirmed specs-wise, won't spend too long on this, that yeah, it's going to support up to 120 frames per second. It's going to support 4K 60 frames per second. You're going to have options in a lot of games like performance and graphics modes as well. And you're going to have enhanced games when it comes to Nintendo Switch 1 titles too. So the specs so far are looking good. HDR10 is also supported as well in VRR, of course, with that 120 frames. So that's definitely good. 7.9-inch screen. Looks like everything's all set there. It is a beefy system that's significantly stronger than the Nintendo Switch 1, which is what I think people wanted, but that whole it's a base PS4 in handheld mode, I don't think that's necessarily true, like a PS4 Pro or whatever the case is. I don't think so. It's obviously got some magic working on the inside, especially if Nintendo's going to tout some of the specs overall, which they never do, but they're talking about 4K. They're saying, hey, games are going to run at that. Now let's get into the next major thing before we get into some of the big first-party games that got me hyped that I saw from this show. I love what they showed off with the Nintendo Switch 1 games going to Nintendo Switch 2. And this is cool because there are going to be some games that are completely free when it comes to the Nintendo Switch upgrades. They didn't focus on those, or actually didn't really talk about them at all, but they have a list of games where it's going to be a free upgrade, and these may improve performance or add support features such as game share. It's going to differ from each one, but there isn't any major work being done to these games in comparison to the other games that we're going to talk about when it comes to upgrades. So ARMS, Captain Toad Treasure Tracker, Super Mario Odyssey, Super Mario 3D World plus Bowser's Fury, Clubhouse Games 51 Worldwide Classics, Zelda Link's Awakening, Zelda Echoes of Wisdom, Game Builder Garage, New Super Mario Bros. U Deluxe, Pokemon Scarlet, Pokemon Violet, Big Brain Academy, Brain versus Brain. So there's definitely some games that I want to highlight here that I know I'm going to go back into and play. Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, that was teased, or more like rumored. That was rumored that they were going to get some patches for Pokemon Scarlet and Violet overall. Many people didn't believe that. Even with the Nintendo Switch 2, they're saying that they weren't going to do it. Looks like they're going to do that and fix those games up. And if they do, I'm definitely heading back in to play the other version when it comes to Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. I'm definitely going to do that, and I'm going to play the single player game more, because that was the big issue that I had with the graphics. Were not great, but it was like, okay, I can deal with that when it comes down to the gameplay. But man, the gameplay was choppy in a lot of areas. So if they can get that to 60 frames per second, which I think that they will, I think that's definitely a good thing. I love the fact that we're getting stuff like Super Mario Odyssey. Obviously, that game's awesome, but it already runs and looks pretty good on the Nintendo Switch 1. But Zelda, Link's Awakening, and Echoes of Wisdom, definitely going to go through Echoes of Wisdom more and kind of 100% things and get through that game, because that game had some annoying frame rate issues here and there when you're in the overworld. So definitely good on that front. I like what they're doing here with these games overall, and I think that they're going to add more games in the future. People have asked about Xenoblade Chronicles, if they're going to add those games. I think that Xenoblade Chronicles X, I think that Xenoblade Chronicles 1 and 2, I think those are going to get updates in the future. It's going to be one of those things that kind of gradually come out. Nintendo also highlighted big Nintendo Switch 1 games that are going to be enhanced for Nintendo Switch 2 editions, and these ones are actually paid. They're not free like the games that I listed before, they're paid. But if you have the Nintendo Switch Online expansion pack, you'll get these upgrades for free as long as you're paying for that upgrade. So free in the quotation marks there. So with these games, there's also added features and content to these games as well for the paid ones, and it's $10 if you want to upgrade to these ones. Nintendo put out a list of games. So Super Mario Party Jamboree Nintendo Switch 2 edition plus Jamboree TV. This one's going to support 1440p resolution in TV mode, full 1080p in tabletop and handheld. You got game share compatibility for local multiplayer, where the game share is actually a pretty cool feature to where you can use one game card and share it with other systems out there. That's actually really dope. That's a feature back from the Nintendo DS that people thought that Nintendo would never bring back, but they're bringing it back, at least here in some compatibility. Next up, you have new modes with mouse controls, microphone, compatible USB-C, all that type of stuff with the camera. So it's pretty crazy. I think that if you're having friends over or whatever, or if you're wanting to play with your friends in some type of way, you can do that there. So that's going to be a blast. Next up is some really cool stuff here, things that I'm excited for. These are going to be at the launch. That's the Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild Nintendo Switch 2 edition and the Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom Nintendo Switch 2 edition. They're going to support game-specific service via the Nintendo Switch app, and apparently that's going to include some type of achievement system in addition to the Zelda notes as well. You've got improved frame rate and resolution, you've got faster load times, and you've got HDR support for both of those. And yes, I'm going to be going through both of them and playing. So there is going to be a lot to play on the Nintendo Switch 2, for me at least, at launch, because I absolutely want to go through Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom in improved frame rate and resolution, which it looks like it's going to be at least 60 frames per second and probably maybe 4K or 1440p, but it's going to look a lot better. It looks like people running it in 4K on those big PCs. Like whenever you download that footage or you look and you see people running it on PC, it looks like that. So that's definitely a good thing. Next up is Kirby and the Forgotten Land, the Nintendo Switch 2 edition of the game, plus Star-Crossed Worlds, and you get a new story, Star-Crossed World, in addition to visual enhancements and improved frame rate. So that game runs at 30 frames. It's going to be running at 60 frames now, which is definitely good. Up the resolution as well. Next up is Pokemon Legends ZA. That game is also getting an update, and it's going to improve the performance with higher frame rate and resolution, which is definitely a good thing because people were complaining about potential frame rate issues with the Nintendo Switch version of the game. So that's going to be fixed up here with Pokemon Legends ZA, but we'll have to wait and see how that Nintendo Switch 1 edition runs as well, because I don't think it's going to be too bad off of the 30 frames that it has. So let's talk about the last thing here, and probably one of the more impressive ones, and that is Metroid Prime 4 Beyond. That's getting a full suite of options when it comes to performance modes and all of that. It does support the mouse controls using the Joy-Con 2 controllers. It supports enhanced resolution, textures, and load times. It supports 2 display options. You can do quality mode running at 60 frames per second in 4K resolution in TV, and 1080p in handheld mode at 60 frames per second. The performance mode runs at 120 frames per second in docked mode at 1080p resolution, and 720p in handheld mode with that 120 frames. and both display modes do feature HDR. So that is a nice suite of upgrades to these big Nintendo Switch 1 games, and I hope that Nintendo has more Nintendo Switch 1 games that they add in, and if you have the NSO expansion pack, you don't have to pay that $10 to upgrade. So that's a nice little touch considering the prices of some of these other games, you know, when it comes down to what we're going to talk about with Donkey Kong 70. I mean, they're moving up when it comes to the big titles. So that's awesome overall when it comes to the Nintendo Switch 2 and what they did there. Lastly, I want to talk about some of the first party games. There was the new Kirby Air Riders game. There was a Nintendo Switch kind of like game that should have been a pack-in. There was that game as well. That looked interesting, but that would have been great as a pack-in title. They also had kind of like a basketball wheelchair type of game that used dual mouse comm mode. Not necessarily my style, but I'll check it out. And of course, GameCube for the Nintendo Switch Online NSO. That was dope as well. I guess we got the reason why we never got Wind Waker on the Nintendo Switch. They're doing Wind Waker on the GameCube NSO, but it's cool because some of these games like Soul Calibur, for example, will add online play with Link, which has never happened before. And you've got stuff like F-Zero GX, which people have been asking for as well, and they're going to add more as time goes on. So GameCube NSO was also a great announcement as well. Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment, which is going back to the imprisonment war with Princess Zelda leading up to The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. That was also another fantastic announcement that I'm really excited to play, and it looks like the frame rate situation with the improvements of the Nintendo Switch 2 looking crisp and obviously way better on that front, so definitely thumbs up on that. I did love Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity, but the frame rate was just so bad at times I didn't even want to get through the DLC. Got through the main game, DLC was a problem for me, but now with this, we got a brand new game, and it looks like it's running better and looking better than ever when it comes to Hyrule Warriors, at least. Next up, we gotta talk about the new Donkey Kong game, Donkey Kong Bananza. That game looks incredible. Donkey Kong looks dope. The game looks like it runs like at 4K 60 or something like that, or it's gonna run at like 120 frames and like 1080p. It looks and runs beautiful. Donkey Kong is so animated. What they're doing there, they spent so much time. You can tell the quality right there. That's gonna be a $70 game overall, but I'm looking forward to playing that. We've been waiting forever for a new 3D Donkey Kong game, and it's finally coming, and it's launching this year as well. So the fact that it's actually going to be a game that comes out in 2025, I think they have a launch date as well for it. Yeah, they actually have a launch date, and that is going to be on July 17th for $69.99. So the fact that it's going to be 1 month after the Nintendo Switch 2 launches, that is incredible. That Donkey Kong game looks like it's so much fun. Donkey Kong looks stronger and more powerful than ever with this new kind of like Donkey Kong movie, Mario movie design. So yeah, that's just looking so good, and I cannot wait to play that game. Like, goodness gracious, I was very impressed with that game. I think it's going to be a blast. It looks like it's going to be like open-ended, open world parts. It just looks beautiful. There's underground parts that you can burrow into and smack the heck out of everything. That is what I've been looking for when it comes to Donkey Kong. People talk about Donkey Kong 64, man. That game, crusty compared to what we're seeing here. Obviously, much newer game, but you guys know what I'm talking about. This looks incredible for a 3D Donkey Kong game. They took forever to make one, but man, they really took their time when it comes down to it. So maybe Mario is going to be later down the road, but this is awesome to see Donkey Kong Bonanza. So very excited about that. Obviously the jump to $70 isn't it's like whatever on that one. Would like it if it's 60, but Nintendo jumped up the price of big first party games with Tears of the Kingdom on the Switch 1. So I kind of already expected big Nintendo Switch 2 games to be $70. Didn't expect 80 for Mario Kart, but yeah, it is what it is on that. But the other stuff when it comes to some of the complaints that I've seen online and all of that, we'll get to that when it comes to the game cards and stuff. There's just more information that needs to be revealed, but that's pretty much everything that I loved about the Nintendo Switch 2 Direct and things that I didn't like as well. I'll have more videos talking about it and discussing all that. There's so much to go over. So what do you guys think about everything? Let me know in the comment section below. All right, guys, that wraps it up for this video here. Thank you so much for watching. I do appreciate it. Please make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you're someone new, click that notification bell, and check out my other Nintendo Switch RPG content and more right here on screen. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you guys for the next one. Peace.